continue with Dr. Gilmar Henz, who will give us a presentation on post-harvest losses of perishables in Brazil, a critical review of an old problem.
Good afternoon. Well, I have a terrible task to talk about perishables post-harvest losses in Brazil. Fortunately, I have some colleagues from Embrapa and also from universities here that can help me with this difficult task. Presently, I'm working at the Embrapa headquarters in Brasilia. So what I want to do here is to present a recent timeline of the Brazilian agriculture. Maybe this is the most important part of this presentation, so you can have an idea what is the state of the art of the Brazilian agriculture. And then I will talk about the objective of this paper, that it was to review all the publications on post-harvest estimates in Brazil. Then I want to make some overview or remarks, some are rather personal than institutional. And then I bring some thoughts that I would like to share with you. For myself, maybe this is the most important slide I have to show here. It's just to show how the dramatic the changes in the Brazilian economical, social, and of course in agriculture. So before the 1960s, Brazil was a net food importer. And right now we are one of the largest agriculture producers and also export. Just to mention a few products that we are among the first. We produce a lot of soybeans together with the US and Argentina, maybe 50% of the soybean production. Then we are also poultry producers, meat, particularly beef, and corn and cotton and sugar. That I cannot forget to mention sugar, also coffee. So the first estimates on post-harvest losses in Brazil started in 1970s. It was a work of the government that wanted to understand better the commercialization channels. At that time, Brazil was making state wholesale markets that we call SEASAs. And also at the same time, we started to increase investment in research, in agricultural research, as Embrapa and also universities, including postgraduate studies that has a strong influence on the Brazilian agricultural development. Lately, with the new government that we had, more leftish, we start also working on social grants or social programs like the Zero Hunger strategy, and put a lot of effort on family farming or smallholder farmings as well. Okay, so that's to give a general idea. Thank you for Dr. Mary to show the Brazilian map that I forgot to bring. But you can see Brazil is a very large country and very diverse in climate and agricultural production as well. So what I did a research on libraries and on online services available in Brazil to review all kinds of publications on perishables, post-harvest losses. So most of them are available only in hard copies, and we can classify as gray literature, meaning that it's not very easable, it's not accessible easily. So I divided more or less in scientific papers, technical papers, or academic papers like theses and dissertations, abstracts presented in congresses, reports, and other documents. What I tried to do is to review critically some of the methodology used and also some of the results. Well, I just brings, this is just as an example what I found. Surprisingly, I found a lot of papers published. This is in the 70s, just to give you an idea, in many Brazilian places. Like the first one was the most important one, done by Sudeni. Sudeni is an internal affairs ministry that started making these surveys. That is, these first surveys have a strong influence on the rest of the publications, mainly based on the methodology that was questionnaires. So this is in the 80s. So we started, this is important also because I want to show that during the 70s, Brazil started to grow in agricultural development as well. So for the first time ever, Brazil started to worry about post-harvest losses. In the 80s, we have less papers published. And then from the 90s on, they started different kinds of publications on post-harvest losses estimates. So this is in the 20s, and this is the present. I didn't finish this paper. I'm trying to prepare a full paper of this, but I'm still working on it. So that's the most important thing. So I divided in two times. The first, from the 70s until the 90s. So you can see the numbers. What calls the attention is the number of scientific papers, like just 2 until the 90s, and more scientific papers from 1991 to 2014. Sorry. But the problem is still interesting for the Brazilians, so we still have a lot of papers being published. To summarize, of these papers that I review, almost 2/3 are gray literature, meaning it's difficult to find. Just hard copies, and most of them are reports. Papers are only like 1/3. Another problem is these papers are available only in Portuguese. If I'm not wrong, just 1 or 2 are published in English. So for those who do not speak Portuguese, it's almost impossible to understand what was done. And another problem is that to find the copies, just on libraries, you have to go there and make a copy. Another problem is that the Brazilian scientific journals, where these papers were published, they have low visibility, both national and international. International because of the language. Most of them are just written in Portuguese. And national, we have a lot of scientific journals. So each society, for example, food science has a specific journal, plant pathology has a specific journal, fruit science, another journal, and vegetable crops, another journal. So for those papers that were published not by agronomists, or for example, by rural economists, they will publish in their society or in the scientific meeting, so that's very difficult. And mostly of them deal with agriculture or horticultural sciences. So another thing that I try to do is to understand this publication. So the first 2 decades, the scope were many products. The first surveys, they study about 50 products, all the fruits, all the vegetable crops. And more recent publications, they are more specific. Probably most of them deal just with one specific product, like tomato, and the use of one technology, like refrigeration or transport or packaging or diseases, post-harvest disease. The methods, the first period, most of them are interviews by questionnaires. And there is a tendency that the second period is more objective, maybe combining questionnaires, interviews with objective measurement of losses. And the third thing is the identification of causes. So the first period, they are too generic. And the second period, they are more technical, but very specific. This is an example of the first surveys that, in my opinion, influenced the rest of the publications in Brazil about post-harvest estimates. So the causes were identified by interviews. So what in 5 categories, like the time elapsed between buying and selling at the retail, and low-grade products, poor packaging, poor storage condition, transportation, and environmental conditions. And then there are another cause was others, other than this. It's a little bit confusing. It's not very specific. So this is a good example how they mixed the identification of the causes, because some of are just management, are not technical. Okay, poor packaging, poor storage conditions can be technical, but the time elapsed between buying and selling is just a managed thing. This is another example of the large study conducted in the Minas Gerais state. So also, this survey was done by interviews using questionnaires. So what they did, they identify the causes at the grower level, and then the post-harvest handling system, and then others. So you can see a lot of generic causes identified, like, for example, in Brazil, the consumer habit, they hand-picking the selection at the supermarket. Even today, you have pre-packed vegetables. Okay, I have to worry. So this is some remarks that I did. So the first post-harvest losses estimate were very important to understand the food supply and also to understand the commercialization channels. So, but the constraint was the methodology used, as I said, based on interviews. The limitations are the subjectivity, the focus on numbers or percentages. The identification of causes were set categories, so the questionnaire already had the class of causes, and do not take into consideration like prices, demand, and other problems of the chain. So the last period of papers, they focus more on measurement, more objective, but still they have some problems with sampling the statistic procedure. the measurement was done at the retail market, combining the purchase amount versus the discarded amount. And in my opinion, they have a very strict concept of quality and losses. So they try to, as a technical, just to classify in disease or appearance or mechanical damage and so on. Okay. So this is some of our thoughts that I would like to bring. That in general in Brazil we consider that losses are about 35 to 45%, but in my opinion these numbers are unrealistic. If you consider that lettuce have a shelf life of 3 days, and then you have pumpkin or squash that the shelf life is 3 months. So this number doesn't help. Most of these data are not supported by real data. Another problem is this extrapolation of these percentage values into volume or value of the product. Another problem is that there is no much information about the perishable supply in middle-sized and small towns in Brazil. Most of these papers were done in large cities. So there is another problem with the interaction of losses with prices and consumer segments, because in Brazil we have still social inequality. So if you are talking to high-class people, it's something different from the lower-class people, losses, I mean. So I put two paradoxes here. One is that the adoption of some post-harvest technology can increase losses. For example, in Brazil, refrigeration chain is not fully used in all channels. So you use at the supermarket, but you did not use it at the grower level. For example, PVC wrapping. If you do not put in the right temperature, you can increase losses because it's a humor chamber for pathogens. I'm a plant pathologist, so I know that well. And then you have also minimally processed products, like ready-to-eat salads, that you need a lot of technology to keep the shelf life. So if you misuse technology, you can increase post-harvest losses instead of preventing. And another paradox is that I found in some papers, that post-harvest losses benefit growers and wholesale markets because also increase demand. So if you lost a part of that amount, the grower will produce more and sell more. So in my opinion, this is also a paradox. That's some thoughts that I would like to share. Brazil has never faced wars or tragic events. We call that Brazilians have a waste culture. Now we have 200 million inhabitants. So recently we faced in São Paulo state some energy and water supply crisis. And the consumer doesn't help much. So in my opinion, food is also a problem. People are not aware about, consumers are not aware about food losses and waste. So now we have 40 million people, what we call the new middle class. So these people now are buying cars, they are buying, Brazil has already 78 million smartphones. They like fancy clothes, and so now we have new problems like obesity, like myself, I'm over 100 kilos, and children nutrition is also a problem. Nevertheless, we've done some progress. I think that the modernization of the horticultural sector brings some progress on reducing post-harvest losses. In my opinion, the formal commercialization channels, we face higher losses. But the good news is that the new markets, like organic and smallholder farmers, we have less post-harvest losses. Then we have some governmental programs like the food acquisition program that buy production of smallholder farms to put in school feeding programs. Then we have the zero hunger strategy, and then we have community restaurants that sell food for a very low price, and we also have some social grants. In my opinion also, I think that is lacking the private sector and civil society to be more committed to reduce post-harvest losses. And the list is, as a Brazilian, you have to be optimistic and believe in the future, so we believe in a better future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henz. This is a very interesting presentation, and it's also it is very true what you said, that there has been a revival of the interest and attention for post-harvest losses. Sometimes I think it has been carried on by the new interest for food waste, as well as the high interest and the high importance of environmental issues. And indeed, at the moment, we are highly lacking primary data and therefore have to go to more specific research and do measurements in order to better understand the causes and the quantities of food losses and how to best resolve the issue. I also liked the two paradoxes that you mentioned. The second one, for instance, if food is lost, this will increase the demand. But of course, if the food is lost at the retail level, it may increase the demand for the grower. But what if the food is lost at the grower level? Then he is not going to benefit for it. However, it illustrates that indeed food losses in one part of the chain highly impacts on other parts of the chain, as well as the solutions that you implement in one part of the chain have an impact on other parts. And that makes the whole thing so extremely complicated. And there's absolute need to have a good overview of the whole food supply chain when tackling post-harvest losses. Okay, two questions. Madam, here.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I'm Lola Gaparva from Tajikistan, which is located in Central Asia. And I wanted to know about new market system, which you tell, and how about smallholders? Do they have direct access to market? And a little bit about this system.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, as I mentioned, the government, the Brazilian government, has made specific policies for smallholder farmers because agribusiness in Brazil we don't have problems with agribusiness in Brazil. We export a lot of commodities, agricultural commodities. So the focus now is the smallholder farmers that for the internal market, they are very important. In some cases, they produce more than half of the dairy products. For example, 50% of the Brazilian production is done by smallholder farmers. Of course, soybeans and maize is different. But for the vegetable sector, most of them are smallholder farmers. So to give access to the market, what the government did was the food acquisition program that puts at least 30% of the school feeding system must be purchased from smallholder farmers in that particular area, because otherwise we'll have a logistic problem to transport. Brazil is a huge country, so the produce is grown locally. And we also have some credit for smallholder farmers. In fact, we have a specific ministry for smallholder farmers. And then the last government policy was to create specific markets for commercialization of organic and smallholder production. So I think I mentioned a few here, okay?
Anybody else? Yes, there at the back.
Yeah, Jethro Green from the Caribbean Farmers Network. Very frank presentation. Just one quick question I want to ask you. In the government, I know there's a lot of progressive policies, etc., but there's a school of thought saying that the emphasis has been put on so much commercial that the generic family nutrition-oriented healthy diet is also being eroded. And as I listened to you in your presentation about the issues to do with the post-harvest, I'm just querying that. I know you're a frank person, so you'll give me your opinion on that. Okay, are we missing that part? Are we ignoring that part too much? So that we come at this level, but at the generic level, we are not doing sufficient.
I don't think I could fully understand your question. If you can contact me afterwards, I would like to because I didn't get the general idea of your question. If you allow me, you can talk to me later on, okay?
Yeah, I think that it's better if we get back on this during the break.